Welcome back to Sydney's Amaroo Park Raceway. We have the Formula Holdens on the circuit for the second round of their Gold Star. Probably the longest of the Gold Star championship round, split into two 20-lappers. 9 cars for the first. And we've already had one attempt to get the event underway. We'll show that to you in a second. It started off being a pretty good day for Neil Crompton, as you saw, winning the opening round. And of course lining up for the second one, but it got off and he ran into a spot of bother. We'll show that to you in a second. Here was the start just a second ago, heading up the hill. Crompton
got sandwiched.
Sandwiched around sideways.
He and John Smith, it looks like.
And John Smith comes across the racetrack. Bang into the wall, so that has shortened up the Dulux Auto colour car no end. Fortunately, we had our Dulux Auto colour race cam running, and this is what happened. Heading up the hill. Then a touch from behind and then swam back into the fence. There's Johnny Smith going off to the right and back round into the wall. So be it. So what, as I said, started off to be a crackerjack day for Neil has ended up being a fairly expensive day. They've decided to cut a lap, I believe, off the restart to this race. So as we pick them up coming down the back straight, Simon Kane looking pretty sharp. Mark McLaughlin also in there to keep the pressure on them. And a bit of a dive here under brakes. So Crompton out on the restart, and that puts number 5 Simon Kane up in front, Mark McLaughlin into second, and Sam Astuti to third place. Chris Hocking's car, the number 74 car, has been taken over by Rowan Onslow for this race.
Yes, Rowan's car ended up in the bank towards the end of the previous round, round 7, unfortunately. Oh, the wing on the back of that car is as loose as blazes. Maybe it was just that the track is a little bit rough at that point. Certainly didn't look too stable, and so pretty magnanimous of Chris Hocking to step aside and let Rowan Onslow take the wheel for this round 8 of the Championship Series.
Would have evened itself up. I think the fact that Rowan didn't finish in the opening race this morning, Sam Astuti getting a bit sideways there.
It wasn't too Astuti, was it?
No, and he obviously felt that Crompton had got away with some points on him. And of course, though, that came to nothing when his car went out in the first try to get this second heat underway. So Sam Astuti runs in third, heading downhill. Sam still runs in third, Mark McLaughlin ahead of him.
So small field, but quality racing still. Sam Astuti, car number 12, coming through there into the picture now. A man with unbelievable amount of talent, still very raw, but under the tutelage of Bap Romano, one of the best of our open wheel brigade here in Australia in recent years, whose active racing career, unfortunately, was brought to an untimely halt by a horrific crash here at Amaroo Park several seasons back. There's what's left of the Lexan entry, car 27 that John Smith was driving here today after that incident up the hill with Neil Crompton, putting them both out of business. Bad luck for both, particularly bad luck for Neil Crompton. Astuti through there, having won round 7 of the championship earlier today. What a great thrill that was for him, and what a disappointment it must be to go out in that fashion in this second race. Astuti really flying. Mark McLaughlin, probably the most consistent driver in the series from South Australia, driving the Elfin 891. Brake lock up there by Astuti, but he hangs on okay. McLaughlin closing the gap just a little. Great battle between these two. Round 8 of the Gold Star Series, the Australian Drivers' Championship. Rowan Onslow, the defending champion, as we mentioned, driving Chris Hocking's car, car 74, in this round.
I thought we had a fairly good scrap going there for a while.
Well, he's pretty exuberant, Sam Astuti, so a mistake is possible on his part.
I mean, another wild one like Winton. I think he's really got this under control today. He's looked pretty sharp. Let's have a look for the gap back to 4th and 5th.
Hello?
There's 4th and 5th. But a little scrap still going on here as they head up the hill. Dropping down into Dunlop Loop.
Tony Blanche. Peter Dulman.
Dulman getting a little closer. Cars certainly look great around the Amaroo Park circuit. I just hope for their sake for Formula Holden, though, that they'll have to double the numbers for next year. I believe that is a possibility.
Well, hopefully, if the talk is correct that they're going to have a big series sponsor and there's more money in it, like $600 for a win in a round of this series is hardly going to keep you in air for the tyres.
Look, I've heard all this before. Going back to Formula 5000, they need the series sponsor. They had series sponsor after series sponsor, and it's just the cost of running open-wheeler cars that fell apart. Then Formula 2, and then we're on to another generation. There was some talk of filling the field up with some of the old Formula 2 cars, but fortunately that hasn't happened because the category really does have to stand on its own 2 feet. There are plenty of trumpets playing for it before the season launched, and you know, and the guys in it are great, and they're all having a good go. It's just a pity the numbers are down, but then again, you must expect that in the first season. Second and third are a little closer though.
Astuti in the Spa 001, purpose built for this kind of racing. As you said, the car's got the potential. Sam Astuti's also got it. McLaughlin closes up under brakes through the lake corner. Astuti defending vigorously now as we go back to the head of the field with Simon Kane.
It's all pretty simple for Simon out in front today. He has had a bolt off the... you're right.
It is loose, isn't it?
It hasn't deterred him. He's still got enough up his sleeve to be able to barrel away from Sam Astuti. Young Simon doing a great job. As Pee Wee Siddle said earlier when we were watching round number 1 this afternoon, he's got a ton of potential. A youngster that's really taken a shine to open-wheeler racing. And he is really like a country mile in front as he heads up the hill. That scrap between Astuti and Mark McLaughlin, they just go past the start-finishing line, so he's opened up probably another second or so as he drops out of Dunlop Loop and heads down to Sutton's Corner.
Rowan Onslow, meantime, is circulating at the rear of the field in Chris Hocking's car, but he'll still pick up some points in the championship. .27 second lap on that occasion for Simon Kane. Now that's really hot on the pace.
Now we'll wait for Sam Astuti and Mark McLaughlin. They're a little closer, are they? As they come onto the start-finishing straight and head up Bitchapave Hill. They're off down into Dunlop Loop now. still have the final of the AMSCAR Touring Car Series to come. And that will follow this event. Able to try and squeeze in for you heat number 1 of the AMSCAR Series. This was held a little earlier. An opportunity to see that great scrap going on between Tony Longhurst, Brian Callahan and the boys. And Colin Bond will have to do it a little bit tougher in the final coming up, because he'll be starting at the back of the field because he can pick up points in heat number 1. Meanwhile, back to the racing in our Formula Holden event. Mark McLaughlin goes through in the Elephant.
Numbers might be small in this category still, Mike, but I guess one thing we've got to say over the last couple of meetings, there's a much higher degree of reliability than they had with engines than they had at the start of the season.
Yep.
That is essential, and as you said, on top of reliability, what they need now are numbers of competitive cars.
I just hate to see the category
wither and die.
Yeah, I know people tend to call you a killjoy, and I'm far from that. But I've just seen it happen with Formula 5000 and then the Formula 2, and this is the replacement. And what really hurt was, I think, going to Western Australia a couple of years ago to do a Formula Mondial race there. And Western Australia was accused of having more Mondials than any other state. And at Amaroo Park, I think there were 2 West Australians turned up, so the field again was down to about 7 or 8, and that's what it won't survive with that. So hopefully there'll be more sponsors and drivers will get involved in the category, and a prosperous 1990.
Well, it's an exciting way to go motor racing. It's as close to international formula as we can get here in Australia. Stewart and McLaughlin go through in 2nd and 3rd places. Simon Kane continuing to lead, commanding lead.
Hang on, folks, they'll be here in a sec.
Boy, oh boy, and you can see how they've streeted the rest of the field. This is a lapped car, I think, in fact.
It's Rowan Onslow. Rowan trying to pick up some points.
Tony Blanche and Peter Dulman, 4th and 5th place getters. 4 laps left in this race. Well, there've been a couple of good dices. The lead might be clear cut, but between the 2nd and 3rd battle, Stewart and McLaughlin, and this battle here, and it's getting closer between Blanche and Dulman for 4th and 5th. Very twitchy, Blanche coming out of that corner at the lake. Dulman right under his tailpipe.
They're coming up on Rowan Onslow.
Dulman, of course, driving one of the South Australian TAFE College constructed cars. Nice machine, Australian-built machine. And, quite competitive in the category. They deserve some success. There's the race leader coming up on this pair. So he's going to be
3 to go.
Right in the thick of this battle for 4th and 5th in a moment. With Simon Kane closing rapidly. Man driving the car in the middle of this sandwich, Peter Dulman, is brother of Nicole Dulman, who was the Tooheys 1000 Festival Queen at Bathurst last year.
Down to the lake corner. Here comes race leader Simon Kane sitting in behind the scrap between 4th and 5th. He'll take the last lap board now. Pulls to the inside. Does that very, very comfortably. their final lap. The second of the Formula Holden Gold Star heats. And, superb outing today. It was quite interesting just looking back behind Simon Kane, those other two that were involved in that scrap. Once touched wheels. However, Kane's clear as he heads down the back straight down to the lake corner. Coming up for Toledo Tools corner and the checkered flag at the ready. So Simon Kane heads out and he will pick up the checkered flag to take the second heat of the Formula Holden Gold Star Series here today. We'll recap them for you on our Caltex race score. Simon Kane, the winner. Second spot going to Sam Astuti and third place to Mark McLaughlin.
Our World Motorsport wrap-up for the first week of August roars to life in Toronto with the Indy Cars. The 9th round of the series will be long remembered by Mario Andretti. In a lapse of concentration, he managed to tear the right-hand side of his car to pieces after hitting Roberto Guerrero's stationary Alfa. When the veteran ducked out from behind Teo Fabi's Porsche, he was confronted by a driver's worst nightmare. The Alfa had been there for 6 laps. It was also a tough day for Alonso Jr. He'd been leading until lap 70 when fuel problems sidelined him. In the battle to the flag, Emerson Fittipaldi was dicing with Michael Andretti. Emo continued his recent streak of desperate moves and clouted the youngster just 2 laps from home. Michael went on to win and Emo was second. In Germany last Sunday, the Prost-Senna war fired back to life. Right off the top, Senna got the upper hand, but this race was a nail-biter all the way to the flag. Philippe Alliot opened his account badly with a start-line spin, but he was able to recover without damage. But the same couldn't be said for Ferrari's Gerhard Berger. The latest McLaren signee was back in the wars after a rear tyre deflated, leaving Berger feeling much the same way. The car hurtled through the air minus the odd bit of bodywork, and Gerhard was thankfully unhurt. After this most difficult of seasons, he still doesn't have a single point against his name. His teammate Nigel Mansell provided us with some graphic pics of how the new electronic gearbox works. The driver merely tickles 2 small levers on the back of the steering wheel, thereby eliminating the gear lever. It was a day Philippe Alliot would rather forget. After his start line hassles, Philippe then had the misfortune of frying his backside when the Lola Lamborghini went up in smoke. The Lola team now has to pre-qualify, seeing they haven't scored any points this season. It was also a bad day for Emanuele Pirro. The latest Benetton recruit was an outstanding third until he rode over the ripple strips and then bowled over a bunch of foam barriers. The ex-BM touring car and McLaren pilot is going to be a real asset to Peter Collins' outfit. After the usual rash of pit stops, Alain Prost led his teammate by a small margin. Senna was creeping closer, but with 2 laps to go, what was going to be a brilliant finish fell over when Prost's gearbox failed. Senna grabbed his 4th victory of the season. Still with the open wheelers, and the Formula 3000 boys are getting crazier. At Enna in Italy, round 5 was a demo derby. It began with teammates Martin Donnelly and John Alesi crashing together. Donnelly spun and Alesi's race was run. Then down went the dominoes. Emanuele Naspetti and Garry Evans tussled, with Naspetti losing. And all the drama left Andrea Chiesa in the lead in the Q8 number 31 car. But just when life settled down, officials lifted Naspetti's car away, but in doing so, covered the track with oil. First on the scene after that was Phil Andrews, who joined the growing graveyard of cars. Next in was Mauro Martini. Then Ferrari test driver JJ Leto. Then Martin Donnelly for the second time. Then Eric van der Poel, whose car was hoisted away just in time. Finally, Chiesa won, and he now leads the series. At Brands Hatch last Sunday, Mercedes continued their winning streak. It was a torrid race. Toyota's Johnny Dumfries served his old teammate Jon Lammers in the Jag. Julian Bailey fell off yet again in the Turbo Nissan. And Davy Jones' Turbo Jag became a barbecue at one point. This allowed the combo of Mauro Boldi and Kenny Atchison to run away with the win to consolidate the Ben stranglehold in sports car racing at present. In Japan last weekend, the Suzuka 8-hour motorcycle race attracted a monster crowd and a capacity field. Our own Wayne Gardner and Michael Doohan had control until Doohan fell and damaged his fingers. It was also a bad day for Wayne Rainey and Kevin McGee. Running at the front all day, McGee was on board when the Yamaha's engine went to lunch. With two of the favoured combos out, Dominic Saron and Alex Vieira cleaned up for Honda. McGee missed out on win number 3, and Doohan will be out for the rest of the season. The French round of the World Superbike Championship didn't get off to much of a start either, with a dreadful Prang back in the pack. After the track was cleared, the race unfolded in a three-way battle between Stefan Mertens, Mike Baldwin and Bimota rider Falapa. Despite the occasional obstacle to navigate around, Falapa was able to capitalise on the speed of the Bimota and notch up another important victory. And finally, in World Championship 500cc motocross, Jeff Leask is still making waves on the international scene. In Britain, he finished second overall to Englishman Dave Thorpe. Thorpe on the number 3 Honda took 2 wins, whereas Leask wound up with a second and a third after some great tussles with Eric Gabors and Kurt Nickel. With 3 rounds to go and Thorpe, Gabors and Leask close in the points, it's going to be a nail-biting finish. It's worth noting that had Jeff's bike not run out of fuel in round 1, he'd be 1 point off the lead. As it stands, he's third and a real chance for a world title.
This is the grand finale, the AMSCAR Series at Amaroo Park in Sydney.
Well, Callahan got away to a good start. Longhurst bobbled at the start and got, I think, maybe a tap in the tail from Gibbs. Colin Bond, is it that's had problems getting off the line, or was it... No, it wasn't Colin. I think it might have been his teammate, Ken Matthews. However, they dropped down into Dunlop for the first time. 15 laps. The distance of the AMSCAR finale this afternoon, and Tony Longhurst will lead from bustling Brian Callahan. Mark Gibbs is the next one further back. Good start from the BMW up to, I think, probably about 4th. There was some juggling going on back in the pack. Bond may have missed out just a tad when the field all closed up because he needed a brilliant start, starting at the back of the field to try and get through the pack. 32 going through one of the Toyota Corollas.
And John Cotter there in 52, BMW M3.
They really have thrown all the cards up and they've sprinkled all over the place. Let's see how Kenny Matthews is doing.
Brian Callahan pursues Tony Longhurst over the top of the hill, 1 lap down. 14 to go.
There's Bondi in our Caltech Sierra carrying Gillux Autocolor race cam. As we mentioned before, coming through the field today. Yet to deal with a couple of cars, including Lyndon Riethmuller. There's not much he can do about this. He sort of hemmed in. There's Bondi.
John Faulkner having a stab at him in the Corolla.
Oh, what a feeling.
That Commodore of Lyndon Riethmuller about 20 feet wide, but Bond gets under him coming into the corner.
Now he has to deal with the BMW. Now he'll get a square shot here on the run up to Toledo corner. And that should drop him up to 4th place. Now he's got quite a haul. The laps are on his side to try and see if he can rope in the 2 Commodores. Bondi with some problems in the earlier heat, didn't finish. Wound up in the pits. There's our race leader, Tony Longhurst. And he's a young man that's got a smile from ear to ear today. They've claimed that they have the car perfectly balanced for the first time this season. It couldn't come at a better time with the Tooheys 1000 at Bathurst on October 1st.
Well, that's the big one, isn't it, for Longhurst to defend?
As he said earlier to us, Dick can have a few more touring car championships. He'd just like a couple more Bathursts. So Callahan continues on. He's certainly been a stalwart for Holden this year, Callahan.
Mark Gibbs still in 3rd spot, and Colin Bond is closing rapidly.
Just back to Brian for a second. Mobile Concrete Pumping Services, the sponsor of the car, but Brian owns the company. So he's virtually sponsoring himself. His young son, Brian Jr., also supplied with a car for the AMSCAR Series by Dad. And whilst it's great to hear that Holden Special Vehicles will be at Mount Panorama, it's also been great to see guys like Brian Callahan carry their banner for the rest of the season when they have the rollers down.
It's remarkable how well he can handle Holden around this tight circuit at Amaroo. Callahan staying very much in touch with the race leader, series leader, Tony Longhurst.
Once again, that time of the day at Amaroo Park where the guys head up Bitcher Pave Hill. Let's recap them for you at the moment on the Caltex race score. Tony Longhurst leads from Brian Callahan. Mark Gibbs to third. Colin Bond coming up in the Caltex Sierra to fourth. Trevor Ashby is fifth. We'll be back in just a tick.
Tony Longhurst, Brian Callahan tied together with a bit of string. Still going at it nose to tail. 1-2. Final round of the AMSCAR Series at Amaroo Park. Colin Bond has got past Mark Gibbs, now holds down third place.
Bond's effort has been tremendous. Started off the back row of the grid. So too did Trevor Ashby. Bond's now made it to third, closing slightly at this stage on Brian Callahan.
And 7 laps remaining, so there's time.
Yes. 37, Callahan goes through. And you can see Colin Bond getting closer as they make the run downhill to Honda Corner. Now Cole takes off after the Sierra of Longhurst and the V8 Commodore of Brian Callahan as we take Dulux Auto Colour to see whether or not the Brian's Commodore is getting a bit how's your father in the tyres department.
Well, the battle between Bond and Callahan is going to be important here in regard to prize money for the overall series, because if Callahan can hold down second spot, he will in fact overhaul Bond and finish second in the series.
I think Cole might be able to snip him the next time up the hill.
Longhurst dropped Callahan off just a fraction there. Bond closing right up on the tail of the Commodore.
I think Brian's into a bit of defence mode at this stage.
Commodore's getting a bit taily.
Down the inside. Don't expect any favours from Brian. I tell you, he's a pretty tough old campaigner. He's fought to get up to second. He's not going to throw it away. And we'll just watch the grunt now of the Caltex Sierra as they come onto the straight. Now, Bonnie slips down the inside and might just nail him before they get to the top of the hill. And that's exactly what he's done. Now, has Bond got enough grunt in the Caltex Sierra to be able to go on and make life difficult for Tony Longhurst? It's been quite a drive off the back of the field.
This is exactly the way they're running on the point score. Longhurst, Bond, Callahan, that's the way they're running on the track in the final round.
So Colin Bond, Caltex Sierra, number 4, heads out after Tony Longhurst, who's been setting just a good pace for himself. Not the most pleasant time of the afternoon to be running a touring car into full sunlight at the top of Bitchapave Hill.
Longhurst coming up on car 51. Dennis Rogers.
Let's take a look at the gap back to 4th place. There's Mark Gibbs coming through.
And Kenny Matthews, is it?
Yep. So they've spread themselves out fairly well. There's Mark Gibbs, GIO Insurance sponsored Commodore, number 36. Sponsored by Suttons of Chullora. Very nicely turned out Commodore.
And 3.5 laps left here as we go back to race leader Tony Longhurst, car 25, the Benson and Hedges Ford Sierra entry. Through the right-hander at the late corner. Colin Bond closed up so far, but not able to bridge that gap anymore on that last lap. Callahan falling back into the clutches of Mark Gibbs. No, it's not Mark Gibbs. He's just passed a slower car. My apologies. In fact, it was car 99, Rick Scarf.
So Bondi's having a real try here in the final stages of this race.
Wrestling with the wheel as he heads round Dunlop Loop.
A little bit of correction on that time, down to Sutton's corner.
Time for Longhurst to get serious, though. He's speared away a bit from Bond around the back of the circuit. And if the car is now as well balanced as Tony Longhurst was saying to us earlier, then it's going to be in mighty trim by the time we get to Mount Panorama at Bathurst for the Tooheys 1000. Not far away.
Bitchapave Hill yet again. The gap from 1st to 2nd is about the gap from 2nd to 3rd. Still Tony Longhurst. Pleased to see Tony having a good run here this weekend. It's been a up and down season for him in the Australian Touring Car Championship.
It's been very frustrating coming off the high of a victory at Bathurst and then expecting to come out and conquer the world in the Australian Touring Car Championship this season. But when they built 2 new cars, they just lost something that the previous car had, and it's taken them all season to get it back. He's convinced he's now finally got it. Not in terms of horsepower and engine capacity, performance, but in terms of just the way the car was set up and balanced. Cars on their last lap. Now, there's the board. So not much standing now between Tony Longhurst and victory in this final race and victory in the AMSCAR Series for 1989. Colin Bond trying hard, but just not able to close that last couple of car lengths on Longhurst. Brian Callahan still comfortable in 3rd spot. And it looks as though that might be the way they're going to finish.
Yes, great try from Colin Bond. Time has run out, though. They're on their last lap, as we've mentioned. Coming down to the late corner for the final time. And Queenslander Tony Longhurst floats it out of that corner. The late turn comes up now to Toledo turn for the final time. And the AMSCAR Series for 1989 is going to go to Tony Longhurst and the Benson and Hedges Sierra. Very close finish, though, with Colin Bond getting up for 2nd place after starting off the back of the grid, and 3rd going to veteran Brian Callahan. Well, there's Tony. As we said earlier, he's been a man with a smile from ear to ear this weekend. The problems he's had throughout the season, he's been able to track down to some problems of car setup and balance within the car, and I'd say he'd be delighted. Let's recap them for you on the Caltex race score. Tony Longhurst, the race winner. Colin Bond finishes in 2nd spot in the Caltex Sierra, and 3rd place going to Brian Callahan in the Commodore. A great finish to the AMSCAR Touring Car Series at Amaroo Park Raceway. We'll be having a presentation shortly. But of course, back in October of last year, this man, Tony Longhurst, came up in many people's eyes as the surprise winner of the James Hardie, or the Tooheys 1000, I should say. Along with Thomas Mazera, we of course head back to Bathurst, the Australian Television Network, for the 2nd running of the Tooheys 1000 on Sunday, October 1st, where Tony Longhurst, of course, along with all of the other professional teams, will be out to try and snare victory. Cars are lined up. Garry Wilkinson will be talking with the place getters in the AMSCAR Series shortly. But a superb drive today from Tony Longhurst, and good to see Colin Bond come good late in the afternoon after problems in heat number 1, car finishing in the pits. I guess it gives him a little heart to look at the endurance races. And Brian Callahan, the lone privateer Commodore campaigner.
A frustrating season in many respects for Tony Longhurst, but good way to finish off the series here at Amaroo.
Yeah, it's a bit like last year. We were a bit slow at the beginning of the year, but I think we're going to finish the end of the season very strong.
You had to be pretty strong at the finish. Bondi's come off the rear of the grid, and he was pressing pretty hard there the last couple of laps.
Yeah, he was motoring along, and I was watching him come up, and I thought, well, I better get going, and I was actually trying the last 5 or 6 laps as hard as I could, but the car's going very well.
The trophy is yours, well deserved. Jim Brooks, Executive Director of James Hardie Building Products, to make the presentation to Tony Longhurst.
Thank you very much. James Hardie have done a great job this year with the series, and I'm very pleased to win it. I'm really looking forward to the long distance races with Neville Crichton, Alan Jones, Denny Holm. I think we've got a very strong combination, and we're really after the Tooheys 1000. Thank you.
That's of course our next big telecast. Colin Bond, congratulations, 2nd place, and 2nd place in the series. Frustrating year for you too, I guess, so far.
Well, it has been, I guess. You know, we've been doing a lot of development with the new computer, and that we're getting it sorted out. And I must say that, you know, the guys done a great job this weekend. We've had a problem with the car, but they finally got it going for the last race.
The trophy from Jim Brooks for 2nd place in
thanks very much.
The James Hardie Building Products AMSCAR Series. And Brian Callahan, come on in for Holden Commodore. Well done. You've got to, somebody's got to keep the flag flying.
Yeah, that's right. It's hard work around here, but anyhow, we're pretty happy with third place. I'd just like to thank Larry Perkins for all the help that he's given us and all the crew.
And Jim Brooks for the trophy.
Yes, and Jim Brooks and James Hardie Building for sponsoring us, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Brian Callaghan. There we are, Tony Longhurst, winner of the James Hardie Building Products AMSCAR Series here at Amaroo Park. Our next big motorsport telecast, of course, the Tooheys 1000 at Bathurst. See you there.